Hey everybody, hope everybody's good. Hope everybody's been well and thriving in this insane world. So we got Kiss, Gene Simmons. This interview happened somewhere around '84. At that point, some of you may know, or some of you may not know. I was working on Edward Van Halen's authorized biography, which came to an incomplete at the end of it. But at that point, I reached out to Gene. I wanted to talk to him about, producing those first Van Halen demos. Ed gives Gene a lot of credit for helping them move up the ladder. Nothing turned out from those demos. Basically, Van Halen was signed to Warner's. It's funny because a little bit after Gene did those demos, the Kiss management, Bill Aucoin, turned Van Halen down. They said, "Nah, we don't see much there. We're going to sign this band called Piper," which is Billy Squier's band. Good band, but hardly, what Van Halen would go on to accomplish. And then a while later, after Van Halen was signed to Warner's, Gene came back to Ed and evinced an interest in producing the band, or wanting to give Bill another shot. And Ed said, no, excuse my language, fucking way. Ed said, "Why should I do that? You guys passed on us. We're not going to do that." And well, he should have done. So this is an interesting interview. Gene was involved in that early history, so you can't take that away from him. On the other side, you're going to hear a lot of annoying beeps. Somehow that had something to do with, this was a phone interview, and maybe it was some FCC regulation. I don't know, man. They're annoying, but try to avoid them. Try to listen in between the beeps. And dig what Gene had to say about Van Halen and Edward in those early formative days. Okay, guys? You be well and take care. Best. Bye.
Yes.
Hello, Gene?
Yes.
Hi, this is Stephen Rosen.
Hi, Stephen.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Good. Bennett gave me a number, and I think he had told you what I'm doing here. I'm writing an authorized biography on Edward. And
authorized or unauthorized?
Oh, this is authorized.
Only on Edward?
Only on Edward.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And everything else that has come out has just been kind of, books that have been written really without his permission or his assistance or anything. And I've known him for about 7 years now, and something we talked about. And so I'm trying to put this thing together.
Is there a publisher?
Well, no, actually, I was approached by Random House to do something, and I passed because I didn't really feel I was going to have any control on it, over it at all when it was done.
At Random House?
Yeah. I mean, once you send in the manuscript, it's they can do whatever they want with it, and they had just said some things that I just I mean, they want to call him Eddie Van Halen. Well, he's not really Eddie Van Halen. He's Edward Van Halen. Just things like that, and just.
Do you want to do what?
Just the way that they were going to put it together was really not what I wanted.
What do they want to do? Call him Edward Van Halen?
No, they wanted to call him Eddie. And
what does Eddie want to do? Call himself Edward?
That's what he does call himself. I mean, we're talking about little things here, but it's just something that I wanted as much control as I could. So,
well, what's the book going to be called? Edward Van Halen?
I'm not sure. I don't know what it's going to be called, but that was just one of the points that had come up, and I mean, I had no control over the pictures that were going to be in there or anything. So basically, I'm just putting together all the interviews, and then I'll sit down and write it and collaborate with him, and we'll see what we get.
What would you like to know?
Well, I'd just like to know, basically, you're going to hear some beeps here, my little machine. How did you first come to even hear about them?
I was invited in 1977 to go to the Starwood to see a group called The Boys, B-O-Y-Z-Z.
Right.
By, I think Rodney Bingenheim, somebody like that.
Right.
My date that evening was B.B. Buell,
Oh, really?
the history sick. It was somebody who sort of said, yeah, this will be fun, you should go.
Mm-hmm.
And I always liked new bands, so I went to see the group. Now, the headlining act was the Boys.
Right.
What are these beeps?
This is my recorder call machine makes the beeps let you know that. Okay.
And I never even got to the Boys because what does that mean? We're being recorded, or is that?
Yeah, no, it's just a cassette. Yeah.
So the first act up was a group called Van Halen, which I thought was the dumbest name I ever heard. I thought it was like Van Heusen, the shirt company. Well, this name really blows. They won't go anywhere. But they started playing, and within 2 numbers, first I saw what David looked like, and right away I thought of Jim Dandy.
Uh-huh.
But before so I said, well, they look interesting. It's funny. I mean, it's a real old-fashioned look, but you know, who knows? Let's see what happens. They started playing, and within 2 numbers, I went, my fucking God, listen to these guys.
Really?
So within 2 numbers, I was waiting for them in their dressing room, and when they got back there was a guy, sort of an overweight guy, in the same room. And we were just sitting there, and I introduced myself, and they said, oh, it's nice of you to come down. Everybody was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I pulled Eddie and David aside. I don't know how it was that we wound up together, and I said, look, I would love to help, because I think you guys can make it. I'm not just stroking you. I'm not interested in doing anything for myself or whatever, but I love new bands, and I'd like to help you.
Right.
I said, well, we're about to sign with that guy in a room. He's a yogurt manufacturer, and he's about to put money into us. I said, whatever you do, look, I'll advance you some money. You don't have to pay me back a penny. Don't let anybody put any money into the band, because you'll never own anything. You know, it's all going to be gone. Hold on a second.
Sure.
Girl, yeah. So I said, whatever you do not sign with him. Or at the very least, just give me 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So don't do anything with it. Just give me 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can always go back with the guy. If he's interested today, he'll be interested then. And I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, look, I'll take you into the studio. Let me have a cassette of everything you've got.
Mm-hmm.
Every song you've got. And I'll pick, 13 things. And they played me things like on acoustic guitar, some things they hadn't recorded, like Ice Cream Man and things like that, which I was not crazy about that side of the band.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into Village Recorders, and they were signed to my company, 900,000 Faces. And
You signed them to your company?
yes.
I see.
And went into Village Recorders, cut 13 things, and I know I was talking my head off to the guys because I was real concerned that they were, serious and all that. And
Right.
you can't, just, sort of like, I know I must have sounded like their father or something.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have been the band, if I would have been them, I would have said, would you shut up? Or a lot of the stuff really had to do with, please don't fight among each other. And just the obvious stuff that you would think about, but that unless a band hears it,
Right.
I think is
Right.
instrumental. And what amazed me as soon as we got into the studio was that Eddie got his sounds direct. In other words, where a lot of the effects are added later on the board, he'd have his effects down pat, so all you'd have to do basically is mic it.
Mm-hmm.
He had his own settings. I mean, he really knew what he was doing.
Right.
And we cut 13 things. Everything wound up on the first and second album.
Oh, really?
And then finally, House of Pain wound up on the newest record.
Huh.
different, slightly different arrangement on House of Pain.
What is it?
And some of the things that, two tunes in particular, one tune ended with a car horn that I thought should be connected to another tune, and they sort of, anyway, some of the production stuff that we did on the demos wound up on the record.
The car horn was on,
The demo.
yeah, I'm trying to think what song that was. Was it the end of Eruption or Atomic Punk?
Neither.
Neither.
It was... Somebody give me a doctor.
Right.
That's the way it starts off.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Somebody give me a...
Bow, bow, bow. So you hear... Bow, bow.
Running with the Devil.
That's what it is, Running with the Devil.
Right.
So originally, Running with the Devil came out of, I think, House of Pain. House of Pain went right into Running with the Devil. And at the end, there was a car horn.
Mm-hmm.
And then I slowed the 24-track down so that we had to change keys or whatever.
Right.
And so the car horn was in one key, and so I just slowed the machine down so that it went directly into the next tune.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that's neither here nor there. The point is really that I flew them to New York after we did the 13 track, came to New York, got them into Electric Lady Studios, and we finished off the tape.
Mm-hmm.
Cost about $6,500. And then the group I was in, still am, had to go back out on tour 3 weeks afterwards.
Right.
So I told them that I would try to get them a deal right away, and if I couldn't, that, they'd be free to do whatever they wanted.
Right.
And the first person I showed it to was my then manager, Bill Corn.
Right.
I thought that they didn't stand a chance.
That's what he said?
What did you say?
That's what he said?
Yeah, they didn't stand a chance. And it was at that point that I said, well, maybe it's time for me to leave because maybe I see something that he doesn't, and so on. At a certain point you leave home because your mother and father's advice no longer works.
Sure.
At that point you say, well, wait a minute, I know more than that. And that's it was at that point that I decided that my then manager didn't have it, the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember taking the guys into New York and telling them, you can't walk around in sneakers and stuff if you want to try out for the label showcase thing. I got to get you some leather pants and some boots. So I got them that.
Really?
Yeah.
You actually outfitted them?
Well, as far as some pants and some shoes.
Mm-hmm.
To make a long story short, I couldn't get any interest. So I tore up the contract. I said, you guys are free, and here's the deal. Here's the tape, rather, and go get yourself a deal. And the next thing I heard, they were off to a flying start. Boom. Either Templeman came down or somebody else came down and did the same thing. It was pretty obvious.
Huh.
And they went off to a flying start. But it's interesting that in the beginning I had conversations with everybody about, well, look, you got to consider certain things. You got to look at this as the longevity of this.
Right.
I turned to David and I said, do you mind that this thing is called Van Halen? He said, oh, no, it doesn't matter to me at all. I said, oh, great. Then terrific. Whatever it is, and that's... Because if it's called Van Halen, the attention will be, at least at the outset, on the guys whose names are Van Halen.
Right.
He said, no, he had no problem about that. And, that was very smart.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them at the beginning that if they're crazy about the name, then don't listen to anybody. Keep the name, including me. I suggested they call themselves Daddy Longlegs.
Mm-hmm.
And use the spider with a top hat and high heels. Each one of the 8 legs would have sort of high heels.
Uh-huh.
This guy would be a grinning sort of spider with black sunglasses, and he'd be tipping his hi-hat.
Right.
Which I thought was more the personality of the band. They sense of humor, but still sort of sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they needed a logo and all sorts of those things. They didn't like the name and didn't want to go with Daddy Longlegs. But still, the tape that was made was called Daddy Longlegs.
Oh, really?
And I still have the masters, the original.
You mean it was actually shopped as Daddy Longlegs?
It was not shopped as either. made some phone calls to record companies to come down and see a band.
Mm.
But on the master and on the tape, it's called Daddy
Mm.
I remember just sort of getting that sense when David was doing his leaps and stuff. I just thought, well, this guy was like a spider or something.
Right, right.
And yeah, I don't know. I just got a real sense that the band was going to be stars right away. There wasn't any secret or anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
It was obvious. And I think anybody could have seen that. I mean, I just happened to have been there.
Yeah. Didn't Bill pass and sign Piper?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I think Piper had already been with him.
I see. Could you sense the personalities even then of Dave and Edward? That kind of I don't know, pardon me?
Yeah, easily. Two different approaches to things. David was obviously a lot more outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wore shade and things like that. And Edward always, jeans and sneakers.
Right.
Much more down to earth. And I think that David also has his own sense of down to earth, but it's certainly much more flamboyant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that, I mean, when I started to get to know the guys, they both, Alex and Eddie, told me that they switched instruments. That at one point, it was Eddie who was playing drums and Alex who was playing guitar.
Yeah, that's right.
Which most people would find amazing. You just would never think of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And along the way, a lot of interesting things happened. Like when Kiss came back from Japan in 1977, Van Halen had just had their first record come out and they were touring with Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
I'd written some tunes and asked the band to come in and, sort of guest demo it.
Mm.
So Eddie and Alex came in and we did 3 tunes, which were all eventually recorded. One was Christine 16.
Really?
And that was Eddie on the original solo that Ace liked so much that he almost copied note for note.
Wow.
And another tune called Tunnel of Love, which wound up on my solo record. And the last tune was either Have Love Will Travel or Got Love for Sale. No, I think it's called Got Love for Sale.
Mm-hmm.
And that wound up on a record after that. So we did 3 tunes together. And
was that in New York you did these?
no, that was at Village Recorders at back again in Los Angeles.
Obviously, you didn't need a bass player to come along.
Well, I wasn't opposed to that at all. But the basic track, the click track and all that with the bass was already on. And I invited Dave to come down as well, but Dave said he did not.
He didn't come down?
No. Or at least I don't remember that he came down.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, we just kept track of each other, who was doing what and going where.
So, I mean, you could sense something special in Edward's playing back then?
Oh, there was no question. The thing that he wasn't afraid of doing was slowing down in the middle of a passage. There's no secret that he's the single biggest influence since Clapton. It's like, doesn't matter what anybody says about Randy Rhoads, who I think was superb.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that everybody copies is Eddie.
Right.
And that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you talk to Edward now?
Oh, sure, all the time. So just see each other at either social functions or I'll call them up, talk about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point when the band started to happen, I called them all to my room. I was at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I just made a little speech. I said, look, I don't want to tell you what to do or anything, but the money's going to start rolling in, and if you have the sense at all that you're not being taken care of, let me know, and I'll suggest some business people meet with you, because at the end of the line, when your teeth fall out and your hair is no longer on your head, doesn't matter how fast you play, nobody's going to give a shit.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you've got something at the end of this. So, I mean, you really got to do this stuff. And they listened. And then I guess they decided the people they were with were fine, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, although I think they did have some problems with, I think Warner's basically kind of shelved them for the first couple of years, really.
Okay. That's when no kidding, I knew that.
Yeah.
And that's why I buried my nose in.
Uh-huh.
Funny, when the band was first getting together, and I said, the name's okay, but it makes you think of a shirt company like
Right.
Van Heusen. In
Right.
fact, you may get sued by them. And of course, they laughed. Oh, that's silly. Why would they? They were sued by Van Heusen.
Were they really?
Yeah. Ask Eddie.
Wow, that's a great story.
Nothing happened. I think they just settled out of court and said that they would never get into the shirt manufacturing business or whatever it was.
Did Van Halen ever tour with Kiss?
Never.
Never.
Would I do it now? You betcha.
Would you?
You bet your ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. And, I love new bands. That's my favorite thing about rock. That it doesn't matter how big the headline act is. There's always a new and hungry group of kids who want to get up on stage and blow them off, and that's what makes it great. When Van Halen toured with Sabbath, it's a matter of history. Sabbath was wiped out, and Eddie especially would get up on stage. What's Tommy going to play after that?
Yeah.
He's going to come out and go. It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
There's a different set of rules that were being applied, and in fact, I'm working with a new band now called Keel, Los Angeles band.
Right. Yeah, I know.
What I think is going to happen, not because they're anything new in any way, shape, or form, just because I think it's the right combination of whatever, all the elements.
Yeah, in fact, I'm doing something on them for some Japanese magazine, so. Yeah.
So I'm not, my reasons for getting involved with them is just, 5 or 10 years, whenever it is down the line, when the band is really huge, I sit back and smile and know that I was there.
Right. Right.
If that's the only reward, then that's plenty.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great.
And what? I have to tell you something else about Eddie is, it's interesting how fame affects different artists. And thank God, fame hasn't affected Eddie in the least. He's really kept a level head and all that. And, that's just more credit to him.
Can you see Van Halen going on as they are?
No.
You sense some changes?
No question about it. I don't mean that the band's going to break up, but in the way things work, because in the beginning it really was just Eddie, and what's happened is David has absolutely come into his own as a force, not necessarily as a writing force, but because of his position in the band,
right,
as the spokesperson.
Right.
The album, if Van Halen's going to continue, may be done the way the Beatle albums are done. One guy would come in, do his tunes, another guy would come in and do his tunes, and then there will be 2 sets of tunes. Where up until now, I've seen that they've collaborated.
Right.
So, who knows? It depends on how much they want to work together.
Right.
It all depends on that. My guess is, though, that the same rules that applied on Jump are no longer going to work. And Eddie knows that, too.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think of Dave's solo record?
Excuse me?
What did you think of Dave's solo record?
Fun.
Fun?
A lot of fun. It's obviously working, especially the single.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure, incidentally, that it's a positive step for Van Halen as a band.
Me neither.
Because my own band went through the same thing. We had a huge #1 hit all across the world called "I Was Made for Loving You," which was a dance number. Still had guitars and all that. By far the biggest single we ever had throughout the world. #1 even in Iran.
Wow.
Like that. But the album directly following that was was a huge stiff.
Was it really?
Huge stiff.
Jesus.
It was Dynasty, and then after that, the Unmasked came after that, and that sold about 800,000 copies, where Dynasty sold 3 million. And I believe what had happened is that a different element. It's like your metal fans or your rock fans are not the ones, in my opinion, who bought Dave's California Girls.
Mm-hmm.
It's possibly girls, possibly sort of fringe fans, people who just like the record.
Mm-hmm.
They're not real fans. Whereas real fans are what makes groups survive. Real fans is what made it possible for Kiss, let's say, to come back.
Right.
Real fans forgive bad records.
Mm.
Real fans can even stick around when there is no recording career, like Elvis Presley, who, with the advent of the 60s, through the 60s, 70s, had no recording career at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cared about Elvis Presley, but he was selling out 20,000 seaters left and right.
Right.
Because he had fans. Whereas Peter Frampton, let's say, who had the biggest album up until that time, 50 million or whatever, right?
Right.
Didn't have fans. What he had were people that bought that album because they liked the album. And then the next record, you're out. And that's it. You never hear from them again. And so I don't think necessarily it's always the right thing to do to go after the single or or that quick, the easy way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you may be doing it at the cost of your core audience.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lose that, then you're really at the whim of whether or not your next record is something they like or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fans will buy anything you've got. Hold on one second.
Sure. Okay.
What was I saying?
Fans and...
Yeah, fans are the most important.
Yeah.
And Van Halen absolutely has fans. The danger, of course, in doing a lot of funny stuff, and I think the California Girls is a good tune. There's no problem about that. But it's not a Van Halen tune.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with doing too many of those, it may even have caused some damage now, I don't know, is that fans are outraged by it. And if they're outraged a little too much, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get this up.
Sure. Fans, California Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if the band comes back with a strong Van Halen record, then it doesn't matter. To my way of thinking, Jump was even a real borderline thing. I remember when Kiss was working on Creatures of the Night about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie came in and started playing me some synthesizer music that he'd been playing. I said, Eddie, you got to watch it. I mean, he said, what do you think of this stuff? Great, huh? I said, I don't know. It depends what you put on top of it. It's kind of scary. You don't want to put a synthesizer just by itself on it, are you? He said, I don't know. It's real exciting. So when I heard Jump, I thought, oh my God, what a real, they're really risking it. But it sure worked.
Yeah.
And
why do you think it worked?
Maybe because it didn't affect the personality of the band, and it didn't affect what they were writing about. In other words, it almost didn't matter if there were accordions on it. It still sort of sounded like Van Halen.
Yeah, right.
In other words, it's the same changes that Eddie was playing, but it was played on synthesizer.
Right.
Whereas the original pieces that Eddie was playing, he sounded like Mike Oldfield.
Mm-hmm.
Very spacey.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it almost doesn't matter what you use as the instrument, as long as the personality of the band, as long as it doesn't sound like you're jerking off.
Right.
Now, I don't think the California Girls was jerking off, but it's a different personality.
Right.
So I'm not sure that it's positive or negative.
Right.
If that personality winds up on the next Van Halen record, I think it'll be a big negative. But it may be okay as an outside thing. That's what I think.
Do you think Edward is capable of producing himself?
Yes. In fact, I've got a management company and a couple of acts. Yeah, I would give Eddie a shot with a new group.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think Edward Van Halen could produce a Van Halen album?
Yeah. The problem, of course, is how do you get David to listen to Eddie if he says, well, look, you
Right.
have to hear the vocals come quite right.
Right.
But yeah, he could.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
He knows enough about sound and writing. And
Mm-hmm.
so if the perspective is good, a producer, I think, is nothing more than a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
A producer should be able to make the best of what there is instead of trying to change something completely.
Right.
So if Eddie's perspective is good, and I believe it is, then he could produce, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It helps to be able to write songs and get sound
Mm-hmm.
from engineering. Yeah, I think he could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll see that along the way somewhere. Yeah. Well, good.
I don't think, incidentally, that anything should be taken away from Mr. Anthony and the other Van Halen
Mm-hmm.
in any way, shape, or form, because even though Van Halen is a great vehicle for Eddie to do his histrionics or whatever, a lot of the personality has to do a lot with the way everybody plays.
Right.
In a lot of ways, it's very much like The Who
Mm-hmm.
in personality,
Exactly.
where each one is each one is very important, as opposed to something like the Stones, where bass and drums are really not as important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's important in the sense that you set up the beat, but once
Right.
the beat's in there, you forget about the instrument.
Right.
Whereas with the other two guys, you turn it on.
Yeah. I do agree with that. And I think that Edward actually could never even play with another drummer. Well, he never really has.
Well, I don't know about that, but sure, maybe.
Yeah.
I know that he's comfortable with his brother. That's
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Any other little tidbits you can add?
Yeah, well, I see a lot of stuff in magazines where there have been a lot of articles that have been asked, where the intent was, I'm trying to say this nicely,
Mm-hmm.
where magazines would ask me, well, look, why don't you write an article? And the sense would be, I discovered Van Halen,
Mm-hmm.
that sense. And I don't think that that's right. I don't think I did anything more than happened to have been at a time and a place where I saw a band. And that was it. And it could have just as easily have been anybody else. It's like, I don't think you discover anything. I think a person can take credit if they do something with the band.
Mm-hmm.
I think George Martin took the Beatles, let's say, to the next step
Right.
by offering some arrangements, ideas, and focusing and all that stuff. The only thing I did was happen to have been there. And so I don't think I did anything with the band. Maybe it's just an interesting press angle.
Could be. But, I mean, the fact that you did see enough to, bring them back to New York. I mean, the reality of it is no one else did. They have been playing around L.A. for several years. And,
because the A&R guys no longer exist. The people at record companies who actually go out and find talent don't exist, or they don't care.
Yeah.
Because a lot of bands wind up, sending their own merchandising things and records, and they're all self-contained. But I bet you the best bands are out there, all by themselves. Just one little garage band someplace.
Hmm. I mean, conceivably, Kia would still be playing, the Troubadours of the world without your help.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. Didn't Ed have some problems? Didn't you want him to do, some overdub things? And wasn't he, a little unsure as to how to, just by the way he played, how to, drop out from a rhythm part and put in solos and things?
Yeah. For instance, he'd cut the tunes by playing, and then go directly from chords to lead.
Right.
And he'd have the solos completely worked out. So I said, okay, so you want to do that? You don't want to have chords underneath you when you're playing. That's okay, but let's do them stereo. Let's, do your solo, then let's come back in. At the point when you go into your solo, we'll split the signal stereo, but when you come back into the solo, let's at least double the solo so we can split it stereo and get a sort of a hi-fi sound.
Right.
That seemed a bit strange to him. He wanted to do it electronically, but he did. He doubled it solo, and I don't know whether or not he continues to double it solo. But certain parts that are, more melodic,
Right.
I think sound better doubled.
Yeah. So most of the tracks then were just pretty much live, all three of the guys out there, and then...
Pretty straight, although on some of the solos, let me think about it, I think on two of the solos, Eddie went back and did some solos.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're talking, 8 years ago, when it was 77, so 8 years ago.
8 years ago, yeah. So they were doing all the cover tunes then, You Really Got Me, and...
No, they were not.
Oh, really?
All original material.
Mm.
The thing that I tried to do was say, well, look, let's pick the best tunes, because I don't hear any singles. And you're going to have to come to terms at some point with how do you get on the radio with this stuff? Because radio just doesn't play that. And so I told them that it's a game that they're going to have to figure out for themselves how they want to play. They're either going to listen to a record company and hope that it makes sense with the personality of the band. Well, somebody someplace figured out what the answer was.
Mm.
If it was Templeman, then good for him. If it was the band, however it worked.
Mm.
At one point I thought doing all those cover tunes was a real negative, but it obviously hasn't hurt the band.
No, definitely worked for them.
But I wouldn't recommend it to any other band.
No.
I mean, you can do one cover tune, that's it. Stay away from it.
When you were,
Knew of. I'd never heard of anything. No.
So you were one of Wood of Randy or anything like that?
No. I mean, if I was, then I don't even know what the name.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Well, okay. So how long are you in town?
We're doing dates around the area, so I travel to the shows, but then come right back.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you talk to Vinny at all? Is that...
Vinny, who, Vincent?
Yes.
Sure.
Do you talk to Vinny?
Vinny is trying to put a band together. It's too bad about Vinny. He had his shot. He really could have, climbed the ladder very fast and had his cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And there may be a reason why Vinny, who's now in his early 30s, never got into a band. I mean, he's been in a couple of bands with Dan Hartman and I can't remember the other bands, like Edgar Winter.
Right.
And he was thrown out of all of them. And I didn't understand why, but then I finally understood that there are team players.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you're Eddie Van Halen, you still have to be a team player.
Mm-hmm.
Where you pay attention to the feel that everybody lays down so that you play within the field. Then
Right.
everybody winds up supporting you.
Right.
Vinny doesn't want to be a team player. And I'm not saying this as a negative, but more as a description of of the way he works.
Mm-hmm.
Vinny wants the Vinnie Vincent band.
Yeah.
And far be it from me to get in his way. Have the Vinnie Vincent band.
Yeah.
It's been over a year since he's been on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that if Van Halen broke up and Dave started the Dave Roth band and everyone on as Van Halen, that they wouldn't be what they are, either in terms of music or the success?
No, it wouldn't be successful.
You think that Edward winning all the guitar polls and ranking #1, he still wouldn't have all those millions of people wanting to come and watch him? And
No. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. And if you would like the perfect example, I'll give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Page.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a good example.
Jimmy Page was in the biggest band in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the singer, Robert Plant, was in the biggest band in the world. He was the most popular singer in all the bands for who knows how many years.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, Stairway to Heaven is still the staple of radio.
Yeah.
The most played song of any AOR album-oriented radio. And The first album sold 500,000 records with good songs.
Yeah.
And so now he's making his career. Honey Drippers is the biggest record he's had. That's 1 million records plus. And it's not based at all on what Led Zeppelin did.
Right.
It's a completely new audience. So if he's making it, he's making it on a completely new career.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere near Led Zeppelin. I mean, if he comes out and plays 20,000 seaters, great. Nice. You know, big. Zeppelin plays a stadium. No.
Yeah.
And other examples, Aerosmith, Joe Perry, and
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. So it's just that chemistry, huh?
No, I believe that something gets captured. But I'll tell you what, bands who are not very successful, who have singers and guitar players go off on their own, can become bigger. Rod Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
The Faces were a medium-level band.
Mm-hmm.
Stewart leaves, kaboom.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other examples. I'd have to think about who. But very big bands who have members go on by themselves who think they can do it, it just doesn't work. Even Eric Clapton, you know, Queen and Blind Faith and all that, goes solo. Okay, he does okay. That's 1 million records eventually, with good songs.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have the adoration, I mean, Ace Frehley, for God's sakes, can't get a record deal. Not even with a small label.
God. That's unbelievable.
So I think if Eddie were to go solo, he could get a record deal. That's no problem. But I tell you how Van Halen could continue almost at the same level. You know how? If the name of the band stayed Van Halen. If it stayed Van Halen and he got another singer, maybe.
Think so?
Maybe. It would certainly be much more palatable than to call, for Eddie to start a group called Warhead.
Right.
Which incidentally is a very good name.
Yeah, it is a good name.
Come to think of it. Wait a minute, that's good. Warhead. Yeah, so if Eddie Van Halen's new group is Warhead, and you got a singer, I mean, okay, maybe, but his chances of were he to do that. And you can tell Eddie when you talk to him that if he decides to form a group and he wants to call it Warhead, all I want is a thank you in the back.
Right. He gave you a thank you too on the first record, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want anything. They owe me nothing. You know, my business manager just keeps saying, well, go and collect, the 10,000 you put into that. I said, why?
So that was about your total investment in them?
Yeah.
What was it that Bill did not see in them?
He thought David was too much like Jim Dandy. He thought that was old-fashioned. So he was approaching it much more sort of visually.
Mm-hmm.
And it was much more conceptual for me. I mean, the sounds and the personalities and all that. And the other actual fact of life is that the people who saw Jim Dandy are now old and in their graves.
Right.
New fans who were going to see, I mean, Jim Dandy stopped being an entity by the late 60s, early 70s, certainly. And by 77, who knows what?
Right.
They don't know it. I mean, to a lot of people, Kiss is a new band. I mean, they know that the band has existed before, but they don't know who Ace and Peter are.
Well, that's true.
And not only that, they don't know who the last two guitar players were.
That's
they
true
don't know
too.
who Mark St. John or Vinnie Vincent. They just say, oh, here's a new guitar player.
Yeah.
What's your name? Bruce Kulick. Oh, right, Bruce Kulick.
Right.
And some people call Paul Gene Simmons. And
That's true.
Because they're new fans. So Eddie Van Halen's Warhead. That's good.
Yeah, it does sound good.
Yep.
I'll tell him.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's great, Gene. I appreciate your time very much. And we'll keep you informed as to what's happening. And
what Eddie should not do is an Andy Gibb Victoria Principal record. You know what I mean? Eddie Van Halen, Valerie Bertinelli record.
Oh.
Because I'll kill it.
She does sing too.
It doesn't matter. Let David Lee Roth producer. Only so much. I mean, the thing that would absolutely have sealed my coffin for all time was if Gene Simmons and Cher made a record. You know what I mean?
That's right. Did people approach you to do that?
Sure, you couldn't. Offered us a fortune. We were offered a television series and everything.
Wow. You know, it's funny though. I mean, I can understand television series being crazy, but because you two come from such different worlds,
Who does?
well, I mean, musically, the music that you were playing, the music that Cher did, were so different. It could have been something, you know, crazy but interesting.
But there's only so much people will take.
Yeah. They wouldn't have taken that, huh?
I don't think I would have taken it. I'm saying, oh my God, what are you doing? You know, if you're in bed together, it doesn't mean the world has to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think that's great. I should be getting together. I think I'm going to be down at one of the Keel rehearsals this week. I'm going to do something.
What?
One of the rehearsing down at SAR, I guess.
Who?
Keel.
Van Halen?
Keel.
Oh, Keel.
Yeah. And I've actually ran into Mark a few times, and Ron I sort of know, so I think I'm going to get
They're
together.
talented. They're going to be a big star.
Think so?
No question, why am I? So far, I haven't been wrong. Batting 1,000. Kiss Van Halen, and that's it. And now I think it's good.
Wow. I'll mark these words down.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Within a year.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going to do it for him? Just that combination?
Nothing. It's a combination of all the other groups sort of making elbow room. You can see it now. Van Halen's going to take a year off, or that time.
Mm-hmm.
There's just going to be that hole that they're going to fill. Iron Maiden has lost some ground. The new record is at 750 to 850 around there. If Judas Priest doesn't come back with a strong album, they're a little bit in trouble. The new groups. The new groups to come out. And the old groups are just going to have to be there, and they're going to be. If they take time off, the new groups just fill the spot. Rolling Stones take 2 years off. Aerosmith is born. Alice Cooper takes 2 years off. Kiss is born. If Van Halen takes a year off, Keel or somebody else will be born. Oh no, hold on a second.
Yeah.
So, Kiss took 2 years off to go to Europe and Australia, so Motley Crue was born. In fact, that was Mickey's 6. And the reason Keel is going to happen is because somebody's going to take a year off. And they are not going to take any time off. They're just going to be there. And so I'll give you the perfect business lesson. You can use it. And I learned it the hard way. Go something like this. Do you like ketchup?
Yes.
Okay. What brand do you like?
I suppose Hunt.
Okay. So you love Hunt so much that you got to have, it's not even so much Hunt's, but you love ketchup so much you got to have ketchup. So let's say Hunt's goes on strike.
Right.
Will you use a different brand?
Yeah.
You bet your ass you will. And that's my perfect example. Let's say Hunt's goes on strike. So you'll go to Del Monte. Right? Right.
But what happens if Hunt's never goes on strike? I've got a band who's incredible and
always do.
They always do, huh?
Yeah. Every band says we need some time off. That's why I need time. That's why new bands are born. See, if I was to plan for something, I would have a copy of Prince waiting in the wings.
Really?
You bet your ass. I don't think there aren't any either. You know why? At some point he's going to take 2 years off. You want a perfect example? Bruce Springsteen and John Cafferty Band. That's $1 million plus. That record, John Cafferty. That came out right before the new Springsteen record. Am I right?
Yeah.
Who the fuck is John Cafferty? He couldn't get arrested or anything. But Bruce Springsteen took some time off, and all of a sudden, this guy sounds just like him, and so what? And the sounds were good enough.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Interesting. You bet your ass it's interesting. It's the first rule of business. Movies are the same way. When there's a big successful movie that comes out, Star Wars, you bet your ass there's going to be 10 other Star Wars. And they'll just wait until Star Wars makes room. Because if there's an audience for that, they'll go to see something.
Mm-hmm.
But you like the same thing, don't you? I mean, if I'm in the mood to see Star Wars, I'll go to see something similar, because I like that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Okay?
Good.
Okay.
Great.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.